Hello and thanks for tuning in. I am Ibrahim Ismaila Ahmed. This is a special interview I conducted with the Executive Vice Chairman and Chief Executive Officer, Nigerian Communications Commission, NCC, Dr. Aminu Maida. As Chief Executive Officer, Dr. Aminu Maida plays a pivotal role in shaping Nigeria's telecommunications landscape, advancing connectivity, fostering innovation, and promoting a competitive and inclusive telecommunications industry. Dr. Maida's formidable career spans significant contributions to leading global organizations as British Telecom, Cisco Systems, and EE Limited. He was also a pioneering engineering team member at Ubiquitous Limited, a groundbreaking small cell technology startup acquired by Cisco Systems in 2013. Prior to his current appointment, Dr. Maida was the Executive Director of Technology and Operations at the Nigeria Interbank Settlement Systems PLC, NIPS. There, he spearheaded the modernization of Nigeria's central digital payments infrastructure. Aminu Maida holds a PhD in electrical-electronic engineering from the University of Bath, a master's degree in information systems engineering from Imperial College London, and a postgraduate diploma in entrepreneurship from the Cambridge Judge Business School. Thank you very much, Dr. Aminu Maida, Executive Vice Chairman, Nigerian Communications Commission. It is good to have you join us for this special but exclusive interview, which I understand is the first you are granting to any broadcast station.
Thank you very much, Malam Ismail. It is indeed a pleasure to have you today at the Nigerian Communications Commission. And it is indeed true. This is my first interview with any broadcast station.
Thank you very much. Congratulations on what you are doing in your team here in NCC. Now, from inception to date, how would you describe the achievements of NCC, given its role as the regulator of telecommunications industry, which enables other sectors of Nigerian economy?
Okay, thank you. That's a very good place for us to start. I think I would say in the past 3 decades, especially since the return to democracy, the telecom sector, the story of the telecom sector is perhaps one of the most successful stories in recent times in terms of policy to law. His Excellency President Olusegun Obasanjo was very deliberate in ensuring that the right policies were crafted. That was the Telecoms Policy of 2000, which then resulted in the NCA Act, eventually, NCA Act 2003. And the policy was very clear. The policy was to create a competitive market that would connect all Nigerians. So if you recall, prior to that era, we were being served primarily by Nitel. So in total, I think we had just about 500,000 telephone lines in Nigeria. And I'm sure you're old enough to know the level of service we got then. But
zero, not zero.
Well, more than zero. Let's give them some credit, because I think the environment and the laws and policies of the government at the time was what gave that result. So which was what necessitated a change in policy and eventually a change in law. So if you fast forward, within a decade, as a result of that policy, which led to the formation of, or which led to the NCA Act 2003, within a decade, we'd had almost 80 million telephone lines. And today we boast of over 100 million, about 170 million connected lines. So we are in a situation where majority of Nigerians now have access to a phone line. So I think that is a very, very remarkable story for the sector.
Another area of also data. What's happening to data to date? I'm talking of when we started. I remember when I got my phone. Yes, I can make calls, but when people now taught me that you can send text, and then much later now you can browse on your phone and things like that. Maybe you want to expand also on the exponential growth we saw in that area.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that this, for me, is one of the exciting things about our industry. Yesterday's technology, within a few days, becomes something that you can move to the museum. So you're right. We started with a very voice-centric industry. Then text messages came. Then the internet came on phones. That was in the 3G era. But we entered the broadband era over mobile connections with before when 4G technology was introduced. And this is what really is the catalyst for economic growth via the digital economy. And I must say, in terms of data usage, now data, when we talk about telecommunications and connectivity now, it is about the internet. Everything happens on the internet now. And for you to enjoy the internet, you need a very fast and reliable connection. And when you look at the numbers, I mean, this year, in the 2 years I've been here alone, there's been close to 100% increase in data consumption by Nigerians. So this is everything from, like I said, sectors like fintech and digital payments, to also the social side of things, especially your social media, so your WhatsApp, your YouTube, your Instagrams, your TikTok. We are seeing an exponential increase in the demand or usage by Nigerians today.
As we witness this exponential growth that you're talking about, quality of service and customers' experience are now central. Since you came into office, can you say that Nigerian consumers are experiencing better quality in terms of telecom services?
This is a tricky question because I can present the facts, but there's also the perception. But let's start with the facts first. In the past year alone, we've seen an increase of about 30% nationally in terms of the average download speed that users are experiencing. So that in itself is an indication of things have improved. Now, is it where it needs to be? Are consumers happy? I think I have to be honest and say we can do a lot better. So it now goes on to what are we doing? Now, if you recall earlier in this year, we had to approve the increase of tariffs by up to about 50%. Now, I know there was a lot of cries, a lot of concerns from the general public, and we made a promise that this increase would lead to improved services. Now, we're not there yet. I think it will take a little bit more time, but we're seeing that things are improving. Like I've mentioned to you, since January to date, the average speed nationally has actually increased by about 30%. Now, to get to where we need to be, it is very important that we remember that this industry, the liberalization that led to the services we had today, was based on creating a competitive market. It was based on the NCC being the referee as an economic regulator. And what does this mean in simple terms? In simple terms, it means that we have to create an enabling environment whereby we can attract investments. And you would agree with me, Ismaila, that any environment where you bring in 1 naira and you're not going to get more than 1 naira as revenue, then I think people will take their 1 naira. In fact, their $1 in this case elsewhere. And when you look at the statistics in terms of investments from about 2022 or 2021, I believe, to 2023, the investment figures across the industry, across the major players, was actually flat, meaning that there was no incremental investments coming, and the implication is they were probably just spending money to keep the lights on. They were not spending money to grow the networks by adding more sites, adding more capacity at existing sites, introducing innovative services. But what has happened since the increase in tariffs this year, we've seen close to $1 billion of investments now coming in. And this is verified because we went to China. We saw one or two of the major OEMs. And across the three major players, they all confirmed that orders had been placed. But one interesting fact, and I think this is one that I have to admit, even myself, I was blindsided by. There is actually an unserved demand that has been piling up. And we have seen this on a case-by-case when we've looked at certain telecommunications sites on a case-by-case basis. After the operator upgrades, within a week or 2 weeks, a site that was upgraded because it was congested, it goes back to congestion. And this is an indicator of changing user habits in this digital world. When you are provided with a quality connection, you just consume more. So I think there's a huge deficit, because in an industry where we held down tariffs for close to a decade, this was not actually encouraging investment. What it was actually doing was just telling people, protect your existing investments and don't grow it further. So by this action that we carried out in January, we are now seeing that the investments have come back. So investor confidence is basically back. And we're hoping that we continue on this trend so that we can build enough capacity to meet the demands of Nigeria today and tomorrow.
Talking about meeting the demands of Nigerians, it's very important for people to see that things are being done in a transparent and accountable manner.
Mm-hmm.
And not just that you are doing it, but it must be seen that you are doing it. Now, what difference does transparency and accountability makes in your industry, especially in your commission?
I think for me, transparency is actually my DNA. It's something that even if it was not required for the industry or for the role as an economic regulator, I think it is something that would have been front and center of the way I work. Now, coming back to your question, why does it matter? Number one, investor confidence. When there is transparency in terms of how the processes are run, the fact that everything is done in the open so that operator A suffers the same consequence for operator B for the same infraction, it improves investor confidence. Now, for the commission itself, what it does to us when I'm transparent and I'm putting everything I do in the open so that people can scrutinize, it also means I am holding myself accountable. Naturally, it means that I will be very fair in what I do when I'm transparent. And of course, from the consumer side of things, it builds trust. So there are certain things that, I'm not sure if you have seen, but there's certain things we've done recently in terms of transparency on the consumer side. One, for example, we've mandated operators whenever there is a major outage. That is an outage, and major outage is, there's a definition for it, affecting a certain number of subscribers or geographical area. We have now mandated that they must report this to their consumers through their channels, whether it's their website or social media. We've also directed simplification of tariffs. So I have to admit, I just used to buy or subscribe to my operator without necessarily knowing what I was getting. I would pay 5,000 and I just said, okay, this seems to be okay for me. But we've now mandated, and they're in the process of complying, that every tariff put out there must be simplified according to some guidelines we provided. And those guidelines specify that every tariff, no matter what you call it or what color your marketing people use, there must be a clear set of descriptions that state how much per megabyte, how much per SMS, how much per whether a minute or second of voice, what are the components of bonus. And this uniform templates, the intention is that so that subscribers can compare across networks very easily. and a host of other measures that we've done. Also, I must mention, we now have a public coverage map. So now subscribers can actually come to the NCC map, NCC website, and on their own, they can type in a location and they can get results that tells them who is the best performing operator, or is the operator even providing service in that area, and what kind of service is he providing in that area. And this is based on data which everybody is contributing to in the background, because as you are using your phone and communicating with the network, in the background, there is performance data also being collected.
For the Commission, recently I understand that you were named as top 5 government organizations in transparency and efficiency by the PBEC. What difference does this make to the Commission?
I think, thank you very much.
Say, are you happy? Does it really ginger you?
Well, I don't think I can say I'm not happy, but I was very excited. But more so, I was excited for the staff of the Commission, because I know the amount of work they had put in, without necessarily knowing that there was a prize at the end of the day. But that is the part about holding ourselves accountable. So I think for me to be recognized, it was an absolute delight. And I personally went and handed over the award. So the award is not in my office. The award is actually in the office of the desk officers who were driving the PBEC activities within the NCC. So I think I was very pleased, because it's a sign that the measures we are putting in place are being noticed and recognized. And again, this is a signal to investors that this sector is open for business.
You said the Commission's strategic focus is to meet the expectations of its key stakeholders, being the consumers, the industry, or your operators and the government. How much have you done in terms of meeting these expectations of the industry?
The industry is a two-sided market. On one hand, you have the people providing the services, and on the other hand, you have the people consuming the services. Now, the people providing the services are investors, and I've dwelled on this enough. They are looking for a return on investment, and the people consuming the services are looking for value for money. But we have to find a middle ground, and that's why we had to take the difficult decision to say, okay, we need to allow tariffs to rise after a decade to ensure that the operators return to sustainability. On the other hand, we also need to ensure that consumers are getting value for money. So I've mentioned we've seen improvements in download speeds nationally, but there are other measures also of value to the consumers. So we've changed our focus from quality of service to quality of experience. So we're looking at the totality of the experience of consumers within the sector. So right from the point of when you make a decision, I want to have a mobile connection. So as part of that is the coverage map, which I mentioned earlier. So no longer, I don't need to go and ask my neighbor. I don't need to ask you, Malam Ismail, to say, is Glo better than Airtel? You can come to the NCC today and get objective data based on any location in Nigeria. First of all, to even see, is Glo present in that location? Is Glo better than Airtel, or is Airtel better than MTN? So that is one aspect of quality of experience. And of course, the biggest part of it is the actual quality of service, where people want fewer drop calls, faster speeds, better latency, etc. And we have to thank the President, His Excellency President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, for for signing the executive order on critical national infrastructure. So we're working very closely with the National Office of the National Security Advisor to operationalize the executive order, which has now made it criminal for anybody to either vandalize or deny access to telecom sites for maintenance. And we're seeing slow but steady progress in that.
One of the biggest challenges of development Nigeria, now mentioning the National Security Advisor, is facing currently is that of insecurity. And for a long time, the advance fee fraud, otherwise known as 419, I guess this thing is not going away. In what ways is the NCC assisting to fish out these criminals and generally sanitize our cyberspace?
The first thing we've done, one of the first things we did when I resumed office, was to ensure that we concluded the exercise of implementing the federal government's NCC policy. So as of today, there's no single SIM card operating in Nigeria, at least that we are aware of as a regulator, that is not linked to an NIN number. Now, of course, there are other challenges because no system is perfect, but we're in the process of cleaning it up, working very closely with NCC and the security agencies. So that's step one. Let's even make sure that there's sanity in terms of the identities behind phone numbers. Now, step two is collaboration. And what do I mean by collaboration? I've given you examples where I said e-commerce. We are not responsible for e-commerce. POS machines, so your digital banking, your digital payments, we are not responsible for that. So we're working very closely with other sectors to ensure that we have the right frameworks and the right level of cooperation to ensure that areas where there's vulnerability are addressed.
Going forward, because we are running out of time, which areas are you looking at to keep Nigeria in step or even ahead of global developments in telecommunications, generally for sustainable growth and flourishing of the Nigerian digital economy?
So today, the best way to deliver high-speed internet is through fiber. There's no state in Nigeria that you cannot get to with fiber from the shores in Lagos. But the challenge we have is that fiber was primarily built to connect mobile towers, and it is being used exclusively by the owners of that infrastructure. So, for example, an MTN or Glo, they have a lot of fiber, but they primarily use it for their own delivery of last mile service. So as a regulator, we're currently doing a study to see how can we open up that existing infrastructure and future fiber infrastructure so that smaller players can come and evacuate capacity into buildings, businesses, public spaces, government institutions with a clear pricing framework. And we believe this will help to deliver higher quality internet services to all. We are in the process of deploying a platform which basically will enable other sectors to verify the status of a phone number. So if will allow sectors to report any phone number that has been involved in fraud. So if, let's say, an operator in the pensions industry, one of their customers has experienced a fraud, that via the PENCOM, they can report to say this number has been involved in fraud. Or the banks in the financial sector, if a number has been involved in fraud, they can report it via the CBN. We will hold this database centrally, and it will be accessible to all sectors. So there will ensure the sanctity of a phone number, and there will be consequences. If you use your phone number for 419, there are going to be consequences for you moving forward. So we're in the final stages of launching that platform. Then in terms of safety, when it comes to the safety of the vulnerable, whether it's children or those who are not fully digitally literate, we're also in the final stages of revising the Internet Code of Practice. And of course, you'll agree with me, in this social media age, it is very easy, as despite the benefits it has brought, liberalizing conversations and giving everybody a voice, there's still a lot of harm that goes on those platforms, whether it is bullying, whether it is impersonation, and other vices. So we're revising our Internet Code of Practice, We're going to be working very close with the National Broadcasting Commission as well, as the regulator in charge of or responsible for content, to have a framework where now we have the powers to carry out enforcement on some of these platforms.
As you said, I know there are lots of things you've been doing or you intend to do that are in the offing, but what would you describe as your biggest win so far since you assumed office?
I think the biggest win was for us to return to economic regulation. This industry was not built, or the liberalization of this industry was not built on a policy of social service. It was built on a policy of a competitive industry. Now, for the past decade, like I said, the actions of the regulator, whether deliberate or forced by misunderstanding from certain sectors of government, we've deviated from the principles of competition and economic regulation. So I think being able to go back to that principle via the tariff increase, so that now we can bring the investment back in. And like I said earlier, I hope we can sustain that so that the other side of the market can also begin to get value for money, whereas the other side of the market can get return on its investment. In fact, Nigeria is not unique in this position. There are only 4 countries in the world that produce telecom equipment, or the core telecom equipment. That is China, with the likes of Huawei and ZTE, Finland, with the likes of Nokia, and Sweden, with the likes of Ericsson. So even the likes of Germany, US, depend on these countries for import. And of course, diesel consumption. We consume about 40 million liters of diesel a month. So you can imagine the impact to the operations of the operators. And something Nigeria did not really appreciate is that this industry was actually on the brink of collapse. So we needed to intervene. And the only answer was to return to the principles of economic regulation. So I think for me, that is the biggest win.
I wish we can go on and on, but due to constraints of time, we have to stop here. Dr. Aminu Maida, Executive Vice Chairman, Nigerian Communications Commission, thank you very much for your time and for giving us insight. We hope some other time we will still come and hear from you.
Thank you very much, Maila Ismail. Thank you. The pleasure was mine, and I hope I did well in my first interview.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.